We've all seen science fiction movies about space, and science fiction movies about aliens. But there's a third kind of science fiction movie. The kind of movie about isolation, about loneliness, identity, and dread. About what happens to a human being when left completely alone with themselves for too long. Moon is one of the quietest science fiction films I have ever seen. And that silence is what makes it terrifying. Because beneath the calm atmosphere, beneath the beautiful soundtrack and the slow pacing, Moon is horror. True, terrifying horror. No monsters, no jump scares, no cosmic entities clawing at the walls inside your head. Instead, it gives us something much more uncomfortable. The realization that to the people in power, human beings can become disposable, replaceable, interchangeable, and maybe, the most horrifying part of all, the movie never screams this at you. It just quietly lets the realization settle in. Like waking up from a dream and slowly realizing something about it just feels wrong. Well, hello everyone. My name is Falcon and welcome to What Am I Watching? Tonight, we are talking about Moon, a science fiction film that I honestly think becomes more unsettling the older you get. The horror in Moon isn't spectacle. It's not flashy. It's not a CGI fest of monsters or visuals to grab your attention. It's humanity slowly being stripped away until all that remains is function. So turn off the lights and stay a while. Let's learn a few things together, shall we? One thing that immediately separates Moon from most science fiction films is how small it feels. Not small in quality, small in scale. There are no giant wars, no galaxy-ending threats, no massive action sequences. Just one man, one station, one man, and silence. No, that wasn't a recording error. That restraint is exactly why this movie works. Because isolation becomes the atmosphere. You feel the repetition of Sam's life, the routines, the artificial politeness, the empty hallways, delayed communication, the mechanical rhythm of daily existence. The station almost starts feeling less like a workplace and more like a prison. And what's brilliant is how gradually the movie builds this feeling. Nothing immediately feels wrong, just off, slightly disconnected, emotionally hollow, like reality itself is tired. Sam Rockwell absolutely carries this movie, and I think this may be one of the best performances in modern science fiction. Sam doesn't feel like a sci-fi protagonist. He feels like a human. He's awkward, lonely, exhausted. There's a constant sadness underneath his performance that makes this movie feel painfully believable, and the film constantly reinforces his isolation through small details. Talking to himself, or conversations with GERTY, his AI, watching old recordings, delayed messages from Earth. You see the station becoming emotionally claustrophobic, and then the movie introduces the central horror. Another Sam. Now on paper, that sounds like standard science fiction territory. Clones, identity crisis, questions about humanity. But what makes Moon special is that it never treats these ideas like intellectual puzzles. It treats them emotionally. And that's the difference. Because the horror is not, hey, there's another copy. The horror is that both Sams believe that they're the real Sam. And honestly, the movie handles this idea with remarkable empathy. I'm getting subtle hints of Soma. And this is where Moon becomes existential horror, because the film slowly reveals something horrifying. Sam was never important to the company. Not really. He was useful, and that's different. The corporation doesn't care about his memories, his emotions, or even his suffering, and they certainly don't care about his identity. They only care about productivity. And that's what makes this film feel so disturbingly believable. Beneath the science fiction, this is a movie about dehumanization, about systems treating people as disposable resources. And the cloning concept amplifies that horror perfectly, because Sam believes he's unique. He's lived a life. He has relationships, and that he matters. But to the corporation, he's inventory. And one of the most painful parts of the movie is watching Sam slowly realize this. Not dramatically, but quietly. The horror settles in slowly, like grief. One thing I love about Moon is that it understands something so many philosophical science fiction films forget. The audience needs emotional connection. Without that, the idea becomes cold. You need to care about your characters. As of the time of recording, we live in 2026, and this is something every movie seems to forget. Maybe a topic for another day. But Moon constantly keeps the emotional core centered on Sam's humanity. His confusion, his anger and his fear, his desperation to understand what's happening to him, and what's happening to him. Even the small moments become important. Watching videos from Earth and looking at photographs. Trying to hold on to identity through memory, because memory is all that Sam really has. And the movie is quietly asking a terrifying question. If your memories were manufactured, would your emotions still be real? And honestly, the film's answer seems to be yes, which somehow makes the situation even sadder. One of the smartest things that Moon does is GERTY. The movie sets you up to distrust him immediately. We've all been trained by science fiction to expect HAL 9000, rogue AI, manipulation and betrayal. But GERTY isn't the monster. The corporation is. And that inversion is kind of brilliant, because GERTY often shows more empathy than the humans behind the operation. He helps Sam. He protects him. He even comforts him in subtle ways. And that tiny, smiley face interface somehow becomes strangely emotional by the end of the movie. GERTY understands suffering. The corporation doesn't. And I think that says something deeply uncomfortable about the systems humanity creates. I think what makes Moon truly linger with people is its identity horror. Not body horror. Identity horror. The fear that... who are you? What do you remember? What really makes you, you? And that all of that might not even be unique at all. This is why Moon connects so strongly with stories like Soma, Blade Runner, Silent Hill, even films like The Thing, in strange ways. These stories ask, is it memory, biology, continuity? Is it emotion or suffering? Moon never gives a clear answer, and that ambiguity makes it only stronger, because the movie understands something terrifying. That human identity may be far more fragile than we want to believe. One thing modern science fiction often struggles with is silence. Everything has to be loud, fast, constantly moving. Not Moon. Moon does the opposite. It slows down, and because of that, the loneliness becomes overwhelming. The empty hallways, the hum of the machinery, the artificial lighting, distant Earth hanging silently in the background. The station feels emotionally dead, and I think that's just another strength to the movie, because isolation becomes psychological horror. The silence forces Sam, and the audience, to sit down with uncomfortable thoughts. And great existential horror often works exactly like that. It doesn't want to distract you. It wants to trap you alone in a room with the idea. There is no creature in Moon, no alien or demon, no cosmic god. The monster is indifference. Corporate indifference. Systemic indifference. Industrialized indifference. The realization that human beings can become products if profits become more important than morality. And the scariest part of all this? The company doesn't even seem malicious, just efficient. And that may be even worse, because evil is easier to confront than apathy. I think Moon stays with people because it feels emotionally honest. Sam feels real. You can connect with him. You feel for him. The movie's not technically realistic scientifically, but it's realistic emotionally. The loneliness just feels real. By the end of this, you yourself can even feel exhausted. And beneath all that science fiction, the movie is quietly asking something deeply human. If everything that makes you who you are can be copied, what actually makes you unique? And I'm not sure there's an answer for that. But maybe the uncertainty is the point, because some horror doesn't come from monsters. It comes from realizing how fragile identity really is. There are a few different examples of this, but I'm going to use a broom instead of a Viking ship, for simplicity's sake. If your mother gives you a broom and you one day replace the handle because it was broken, and then you find the bristles to not be as stiff as they once were and you replace those too, and then the grip. If after about 7 years you've replaced every part of the original and none of the original actually exists anymore, is it still the same broom? Now here is your random fact of the day. Imagine the same thing but with your body, with your mind, that over a series of years, after only just 7, every cell in your body would have been shed and replaced by a new one. Just like that broom, there's nothing left of the original. What about you? Are you truly the same you that you were 7 years ago? Just a thought. But anyway, guys, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this, let me know your thoughts on Moon down below. Did you see it more as science fiction, or as existential horror? And which version of Sam do you think was truly the real one? If there was a real one. Personally, I think they were all real, but they weren't all the same Sam. But anyway, I want to thank you all so much for watching and making it this far into the video. Let me know your thoughts on Moon down below. Do you see it as science fiction, or as existential horror? And if you enjoyed this video even more, if you could, a subscription would help a small channel like mine more than you know. I want to thank you all for being here this evening, and I hope to see you in the next video. One thing I love about Moon is that it understands something many philosophical One thing I love about Moon is that it understands something many One thing I love about Moon is that it understands something many I can't philosophical. One thing I love about Moon is that it understands something so many philosophical science fiction films forget.
First try.